FM26 is still due to release later this year, hopefully. And when it does come out, goodness me, does it need to be awesome. Now, I know we've had the whole Football Manager 2024 is the most complete version of Football Manager ever thing. And yeah, it's been great, but it's now old. We've been playing it for 18 months, and some of the comments in some of my recent videos are demonstrating that some of you might be getting a little bit bored of it. But not only that, although it was a really, really good version of Football Manager when it came out, there were still some problems with it. And I think with the wait that we've had, the time that Sports Interactive have now taken, it's no longer going to be enough to just release a game that is a new version of the game we've already got. I think they need to absolutely blow our socks off. And one of the ways to do that is address some of the long-standing issues Football Manager has had alongside some of the other shiny new stuff that we already know is coming, like the Premier League license and the new UI and women's football and stuff like that. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the 5 most important things that FM26 must fix. And number 1, the most commonly asked for one, is the match engine animations. And it's a weird one coming from me because I've said for many years that I'm not really a match engine guy. I'm not really that bothered about it. And for me personally, I'm not, but I'm nearly 30 years old. I'm getting on a little bit, and I don't know that I'm necessarily the person, and in the nicest possible way, if you're old like me and you've been playing Football Manager for 20, 30 years, I don't know if your opinion on it, just like my opinion, I don't think our opinions matter so much as the opinions of all the shiny young new people that they're going to be looking to bring in. We've obviously seen over the last few years that the game has moved into consoles in a big way, tablets, handhelds, mobile. I think if you're going to be targeting a much younger demographic who are used to playing EAFC, they are used to PlayStation 5, high-end PC graphics. I think if they're the people you're targeting, it's not good enough for a game in 2025 to look the way Football Manager looks. It just isn't. And I'm not just talking shining up the graphics to make it look like FIFA. I don't think that's what anybody wants. But I mean, things could be a little bit crisper. We could maybe have a little bit more in the way of stadiums that look like stadiums, pitches that look like pitches. How about human beings that move like human beings? That would be absolutely incredible. Even if they took the existing graphics, didn't shiny it up in any way, but made the players move like actual humans, that would be absolutely fantastic. I never again want to be in a situation where the game is telling me a player's offside, but the match engine is showing me it's not, because the match engine is deciding it's offside based on the overhead dots view, and it's offside on the dots, but the 3D match engine can't represent what the game is trying to represent, so it just gets stuck. But we've seen so many weird, silly little glitches. Players making a tackle and then immediately giving the ball away. It happens so often. Don't get me started on goalkeepers. Weird collisions, weird ball mechanics in physics. And it doesn't graphically and motion-wise look like a modern video game. And I think they have made a rod for their own back by positioning themselves as wanting to be a modern video game with the tie-ins, with the consoles, with the tablets, with stuff like Game Pass, with some of the stuff that's already been announced about what they're planning to do to the UI. They're clearly targeting more of that mobile console, younger demographic. And it's not enough to just say, we'd like the young people to play, please. Here's our same old game that looks like it's for old people. If you're going to target those people, you've got to make a game of a standard that they're used to, and you only have to look at the graphics on some free-to-play mobile games and they outshine Football Manager, and obviously that needs to change, and it had to change from the moment SI decided that it was no longer going to be a game that was just targeting fat old beardy men like me who like to play it on their laptops in their pants and don't really play any other games. When they became a video game, when they decided to change the match engine, they committed themselves to video game graphics, and now they've got to follow through on it. But if I'm at risk of losing my fellow old folk here, don't worry, this one you're going to be completely on board with. Number 2, we need better in-game AI for transfers and tactics. And this has been such a huge complaint people have had for as long as they've been playing Football Manager. When you see nonsensical transfers that make no sense, how many times have we seen the AI spend £100 million plus on a player and then never use them? When you're doing your own scouting, you see there's a player who went for 30 million 2 years before and didn't play a single game at the club that he went to. It's a Football Manager meme to see the real life players play on well past their use by date, and you'll look at Manchester United 10 years in the future and it'll still have all of the current young players there because they just never moved on, they never retired, they never got replaced. So you end up with situations like where you have a 39-year-old Virgil van Dijk still starting every week for Liverpool because they've never successfully been able to replace him through the in-game transfer AI. And don't get me started on when AI meets humans when it comes to transfers. Why is it that the AI can buy a player for 10 million that I have to spend 40 million pounds on? Why is it that no matter what club you're managing and what club the player you're targeting is playing at, if they're under 18, they will not discuss terms with you? If they've signed a contract at their previous club in the last 6 months, they will not discuss terms with you. And this one is a real kicker for me. If your in-game club reputation isn't high enough, they will always choose the higher reputation club over you, regardless of recent form. So you could be a team, let's say you're having a really solid road to glory. You've done back-to-back promotions from the National League to the Championship, and you want to sign those couple of players that can tip you over and take you to the Premier League, but they don't want to sign for you because your club reputation is still League Two. So all these players who you know would be your difference makers go and play in League One instead, sometimes even for less money than you were offering, because it's so hard-coded to reputation, and reputation takes a long time to catch up. It's incredibly frustrating, and that's without even touching on tactics. And I am probably the most guilty of this person in the world, but you can play FM by just picking a tactic that you know works and sticking to it forever, and the game will never attempt to counter it. People have tried to convince me for years that, oh, the in-game AI will learn what you're doing and try something. No, it won't. No, it won't. It just won't. Very occasionally, if you play a tactic for too long, you'll arbitrarily hit a point where bang, that tactic will not work anymore. You'll lose your 5 games in a row. It feels like there's nothing you can possibly do. And then you'll get the dreaded email telling you you've got to change your tactic. You change your tactic. You can do that for 3 or 4 games. But then after 3 or 4 games, you can switch back to your original tactic that did work and it will just start working again. Because it's not very smart AI. And it's smart enough. It must have some kind of fail-safe in there. It's smart enough to stop you from winning 80 games in a row, unless you're incredibly overpowered or cheating. That's why it's so difficult to do an invincible season in Football Manager, because the game tries not to let you do it. But in terms of actual AI managers countering actual human tactics, it does not exist. And it would be lovely if it did, because it would force people like me to actually think about tactics a little bit more, because at the moment it's an area of the game that I don't feel the need to spend a lot of time on, because there's like 3 tactics that work really well and you just rotate between them and it works, and then it's just about signing the best players, and it shouldn't be. There should be more to it than that, and that's something that needs to be fixed for FM26. Number 3 is one that we already know Sports Interactive are addressing, and that is that the UI needs an overhaul. It is a sea of text and numbers and data, and if you're a new player coming into the game, it's incredibly hard to work your way up that learning curve. I mean, it's great for me as a content creator because it means people watch my tutorials. So I guess maybe don't do this one, Sports Interactive. But if you're actually trying to get this game out there to a new audience who've never played it before, haven't grown up with it, because if you've been playing as long as I have, you are used to the idea of it was really, really basic and simple 25 years ago, and they've gradually layered on new features, and we've learned the new features as we've gone. And now the game is a beast. It is a monster compared to what it was 25, 30 years ago when we started playing. Imagine coming into that game as it is now, that bloated game full of stuff, most of which we don't even use, but you don't even know which bits you're supposed to use and which bits you're not supposed to use. It's never really explained. The in-game tutorials are absolute bobbins. And it's very, very difficult to break through that shell and get into the game as a new player. Certainly in any kind of reasonable amount of time. You can't pick up this game as a new player and be enjoying playing it within an hour or 2. And that is in the TikTok age, if you're pushing this to consoles and pushing this to tablets, it's got to be more fun more quickly, When you load up a new game of FIFA, the first thing it does is gets you to play a match before you even see a UI. I'm not saying Football Manager needs to follow that route, but it's got to be funner, quicker, and less bloated, less data-y. And I think and I hope that the UI changes that they're already planning on are a step in the right direction. And I know some of the old curmudgeons like me are going to be upset about it dumbing down the game and making it work for console players and blah, 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 blah. I think all of that is fine, and I think we'll get used to it. The game isn't going to get dumbed down. The stuff is all still going to be in there. It's just going to be, hopefully, in a more logical place. And I just can't see an argument that having a UI that works on console, tablet, mobile, and PC, I can't see how that's a bad thing. If you look at some of the biggest game franchises out there that are across multiple different platforms, they are the same on all of those platforms. The menus are the same, the UIs are the same, the controls are the same. When you load up Football Manager Mobile compared to Football Manager Touch, compared to Football Manager Console, compared to Football Manager Full Fat, they're all completely different games with different UIs. That's madness. Unify the whole thing, make it one game, make the saves cross-compatible. I mean, I'm leaping into different things here. This is Kev's ideas book, but just modernize. And I think and I hope they are. And that one is super important. Number 4, and this is where I'm calling back on my computer science degree here, because we need better progression and feedback loop stuff. I need to feel more that I'm in control, because at the moment on Football Manager, it is possible, and it's demonstrated by those videos you see on YouTube where you pick the tactic, lock it in, pick your first 11, lock it in, do a few transfers, lock them in, sim it for a season, boom, win the league. Shouldn't be able to do that. That's nonsense. You should not be able to do that. That is not how managing a real football team works. There should be more stuff going on a day-to-day, on a match-to-match basis. You should be having to change stuff. You should be having to tweak your training and be able to see what changes happen when you tweak training, because I could go in there and mess with training, and unless I then go and try and sift through the graphs and interpret the graphs and look at how certain attributes have I don't want to faff around with all the data. I want to know, right, if I get this guy if I train Declan Rice to do direct free kicks, I want to see him score a direct free kick as a result. Or I want my assistant manager to come and say, I tell you what, Kev, Declan's been doing really well with his direct free kicks in training lately since we started training him on it. Maybe you put him on him in matches and see what happens. Just a complete feedback loop. You make a decision to do something, the thing happens, and then you see the results of the thing. And that is often broken or hidden in a sea of data in Football Manager, and it could be easier and clearer. And the same thing goes through training, player development, scouting, tactical stuff. It shouldn't be a set it and forget it option. It should be constantly having to think and tweak. And I think the obvious way that happens, and I can't imagine it's going to be in 26 because they'd be making more of a song and dance about it if it was, but you need proper smart in-game AI that responds to you as a player. You need the AI to be trying to beat you as the player, not just trying to simulate its sort of preset way of doing things that it doesn't vary from. If you as a player start playing a really successful strikerless system, for example, and you win the treble with it, you should see other managers starting to do strikerless, or other managers developing tactics that counter the strikerless so it stops working. It shouldn't be possible to just be like, right, I've got this game-breaking tactic and I want it to, and I'm going to win the league 20 times in a row with it, because it's silly. It's very hard to fix, but they've had 2 years and lots of money, and I'd like to at least see some progress in that direction. And then finally, number 5, I would very much like to see, and I think we need to see, an online game mode that actually works, which might be the biggest ask of them all, because online network play stuff has been in Football Manager for 20 years probably at this point, and it's never really worked. It's very buggy. It's not a great user experience. Anyone who's ever watched the network game that I did with Ben and Zealand and Jack, as much as by and large we got it working, goodness me, did Zealand slow it down because he wanted to do everything really slowly, and that one guy playing really slowly was able to slow it down for everybody else. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be slightly different. It shouldn't just be the single player mode, but with 4 managers in and everyone can take their time and do whatever they want. There needs to be some tweaks to optimize it for playing as a group so that you don't have one really slow American man ruining it for everybody. But also things like the fantasy draft, actual online competitive play. We saw last year with the FIFA E World Cup, which I was very happy to be a part of, had a lovely time, what a great event. But we saw it is possible to do a massive esports style event with Football Manager, but they had to massively change the rules of the game, and it was multiple different sections of the game that they were using, and they had to implement their own point system, and there wasn't a simple way to just take Football Manager and do an esports tournament with it. They had to do this whole load of extras as well. With the Streamer Showdown, the amount of time poor old Matt would have to spend building the database, building the actual game world, the save file. There wasn't just a mode that worked. You can't just open up Football Manager and do your own Streamer Showdown or do your own World Cup, do your own tournament. There's so much fiddling and faffing, and even when you've done all the fiddling and faffing, you still have that annoying little divergence issue that happens sometimes where you can't both press to do a substitution at the same time because the game will break, or it's showing you're 2-0 up on your screen but it's 1-0 on the other guy's screen because something weird has gone wrong somewhere, or someone just gets kicked out of the game entirely and can't get back in again until at the end of the match. And it's not optimized for online, and it's 2025 and it should be. And hopefully with the rise of stuff like the Streamer Showdown, the World Cup, hopefully we see more and more of that stuff. Hint, hint, Ben, do a Streamer Showdown. I'd like to play in one, please. But hopefully we see more and more cool stuff. And that kind of forces their hand into making online more and more a part of the thing. Because again, going back to the little console folk, they love online play. You just have to look at the success of stuff like EAFC, GTA, Call of Duty, Fortnite. The game mode people play is the competitive online one. And I know that hasn't been the core of Football Manager, but the core of Football Manager will play normal Football Manager regardless. If you want to grow Football Manager, you have to move beyond the core, and that's where competitive online play comes in. And those are my thoughts, boys and girls. Let me know down in the comments what you think. If you could only implement one of those that I've suggested, which one would it be? Or am I completely off base? If you've got some better ideas, feel free to use the comments section for that, or head over to the Discord. There's a link to that down below as well, right next to the link to my relaunched Patreon. So maybe check that out while you're there as well, because we've got some fun stuff planned over there too. But for now, if you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for loads more Football Manager content, and thank you very much for watching.